What do you think the strangest celebrity hobbies are? Because I had one in mind.
Does that have anything to do with Richard Gere?
No.
We were talking about guinea pigs earlier, so.
No. I just think it's really weird that Gwen Stefani enjoyed walking into spider webs so much that she made it.
She wrote a song.
She wrote a song about it.
I hate walking the spider webs, dude. It's like my least favorite thing. In Hayao Miyazaki's 1997 historical fantasy film, Princess Mononoke, we are transported back to the Muromachi era of Japan, where we follow the adventure of a young prince set on a journey to lift the curse brought about by hatred. On this adventure, he finds himself faced with a variety of different topics, including war, greed, environmentalism versus industrialism, feminism, and the blurred lines of good and evil. For all things that make you feel sad, bad, and just generally not rad, this is an existential shred.
I think we started every episode with, all right.
All right. It's like after we read the intro, just like,
All right.
mission accomplished.
We did it.
We did it.
Fly the jet in.
All right, but yeah, so we watched another first for the cast, a feature-length animated feature-length animated film. There you go.
We watched a film-length film.
A film-length animated.
A featured film-length film.
Yes. Princess Mononoke, one of my personal favorites.
Mm.
I'm a big anime fan. I'm the weeb on the cast, but this was the one that opened my eyes to what anime could be, because like everything before this I saw was like Dragon Ball Z power up, like fighting special power anime. But this was just like, this blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid. I was like maybe 10 when I saw this, and I was just like, oh man, this is a crazy story. Like, it reminded me of a dark fantasy movie like Dark Crystal and stuff that I watched also like growing up. But so I was super excited, and then I started getting more into anime because of that. It wasn't just, lighthearted stuff anymore.
This was my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
In any Studio Ghibli.
There's different pronunciations. It's just like GIF and GIF. It's Ghibli or Ghibli.
Yeah, I'm not an anime person. I don't know, sue me.
I knew that going into this. I was like, gotta make you watch this one at least. But there's some other ones that will probably pop up on the cast because they're shred worthy. But this was the kickoff. Not saying I'm just gonna do a bunch of anime now, but there will be some here and there. But yeah, it's a pretty good story. In general, it's longer than I remembered. What was it, like 2 hours and 20 minutes?
It's over 2 hours, which was surprising.
Pacing's good though. It doesn't feel long if you're watching it.
Not at all. Enough happens. Like, there's enough to really keep you entertained throughout. It's not very one note. It's kind of like there's always something being added to the plot, the story, the MacGuffins that drive the plot. Something
I had never realized until recently reading about it this time, though, is that it is actually considered a period piece, because like I said, it covers the Muromachi era of Japan, which is like right before deforestation started happening in Japan. I never realized that. I always thought it was just a completely like fantasy portion of it. And then I was reading also that the Amishi people were like a real tribe of people also, that I did not realize that before.
I didn't look into it a ton because I know you're the expert in this field, so I was like, I'll just have him tell me. And that was part of the thing that confused me, is I was reading like into it, and it was like, yeah, these are actually like, this is a group of people in Japan, and I was like, wait a second. Hold on a sec. So does that mean there's giant boars too?
I wish. That'd be cool. Well, I mean, they did say in the dawn of time all the animals were bigger than what they are now.
I guess one of the first things I noticed with this was, I always hear people talking about sub versus dub, and I think this, again, I mean, it's kind of my first real foray into anime stuff. But I was like, almost immediately, I was like, oh, I understand why people hate dubs. Because I don't know if the one you watched, was it dubbed over?
I watched dubbed. I
Okay.
I watch a lot of things dubbed. I'm not a
A
a
purist.
purist. No,
Mhm.
not by any means. I think Studio Ghibli's dubbed versions are amazing. They do very good voice casts as well.
I
What was
wasn't.
your issue with it?
I don't know where I like heard or read this, but like when you're doing a dub, when you're translating it from a different language, it's difficult because you have to hit like a certain amount of words and a certain amount of lines within a period of time because they have to match up like the
Yeah.
animation or whatever. A lot of the time, it kind of at times it felt like the audio was or the dialogue was very rushed and like almost emotionless because of how rushed it was. And I was like, okay, I could see where just reading the words that are happening would be beneficial as opposed to like, am I wrong? That's Billy Bob Thornton, right?
That is Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay. Instead
Yeah.
of Billy Bob Thornton being like, oh, yes, the giant boar demon.
Yeah. Also, I don't know that he's very much known to be a voice actor. Like, you don't see him as a voice actor in a lot of things.
I liked him. It's just I feel like if it is an issue with like having to really fit in
Yeah.
like everything, then it's not really his fault because like I liked his character. I liked him doing the voice. It's just he's very flat, and I think it's just because he had to get a lot in. But that was the first thing is I was like, okay, I see the validity to that argument.
Yeah. Dub's never anything that has like really bothered me. I think I can kind of look past it, and I think that character in general just kind of, as you get to know him throughout, I could see him being an emotionless person in general. But the voice cast in general in this, like the main character Ashitaka is Billy Crudup, San, the wolf girl, is Claire Danes, Lady Eboshi is Minnie Driver, Akoto the boar was Keith David, the wolf goddess is Gillian Anderson, who's Agent Scully from
X-Files.
X-Files. And then Billy Bob Thornton, like it's Joe DiMaggio is in it too.
That was the weird one because I was like, I picked up on Billy Bob Thornton right away because like I watched his season of Fargo recent enough that I was like, wait a sec. And then Lady Eboshi's bodyguard comes in and I was like, I know that voice.
Jake
and
the dog. And
not
Bender.
in Bender.
Yeah.
He started, I was like, I know that voice. And then he started yelling. I was like, it's Bender. That's him.
Oh yeah, the movie we meet the main character, Prince Ashitaka, who hears that there's something weird going on on the outskirts of his little village, and he goes to see the guard, and the guard's just like, oh, there's something out there in the woods, and essentially the place gets attacked by a demon, which it's very creepy looking in general at first. It's just like a weird wormy, like a mass of worms shaped like a spider. I love Miyazaki's artwork. It's great. It always is. His imagination, the stuff that he captures with it just tickles my brain all the time.
I immediately was really drawn in by the art style. Again, not really being an anime person. The first shot that you get, or the first frame, I guess, if you're not using an actual camera,
Yeah.
is the very like foggy mountains. And I was like, wait a second, is that real? Like it took me a second to be like, that's not film. Like they're not doing like a film to animation thing. And like after that I was like, all right, there's something here. And then the demon artwork is really interesting, and there's a couple things throughout that reminded me of very Japanese stylistic things from Software Souls franchise, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, even Pokemon. Do you disagree with my take? A lot of the artwork and the art style, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, maybe all of this stuff is influenced by this. And then I was like, I don't know, I'll look into it, whatever. One of the things I did look into, but we can talk about that when we get there. But yeah, I really like the art style. I really like the makeup of the demon and everything. It's really cool.
It's something mind-boggling. First off, animation just like boggles my mind in general. And then whenever I've learned as I was older, like I used to watch this stuff as a kid, then I learned that Miyazaki really doesn't like to reuse any frames. So everything's hand-drawn and almost nothing's repeated.
Speaking of things he doesn't like,
He also doesn't like digital animation.
which
He did use a little bit in this. Yeah.
do you know how much?
It was one of his first times experimenting with it. I don't know how much.
I clocked him in. There was I read an article because I was interested. Like I said, I didn't do a lot of research, but I was just so tired. I did a little bit of research on topics I specifically wanted to talk about, and then one of the things that came up that I saw in reading was about him not wanting to use computer graphics. There are 5 minutes of animation that is totally done by computer graphic, with 10 minutes where it is digital ink as well as paint. So 15 minutes total out of a almost 2 hour and 15-minute movie.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I always make jokes because I think he's retired 3 times now, and his son started animating, and like everything his son does, he hates. It's in the most recent thing he did, it was called Earwig and the Witch, and it was all 3D animation, and he goes, I feel like this has just killed animation entirely. I say, like, he keeps like retiring, and then his son comes out with something, then he comes out of retirement to
That's
make his name better, it seems like.
That's sad.
Yeah, but poor Gora. But what we get is a battle, somewhat. It's mostly, it's not meant to be a battle. It's Ashitaka's trying to reason with the demon, tell him that they don't want any trouble. They don't want anything to do with him. Essentially, trying to reason him off to leave peacefully. Then his sister stops because another girl trips and she's getting ready to defend her. And then he fires an arrow and hits the thing right in its eye. In the ensuing battle, Ashitaka gets his arm kind of grabbed by the worms, which then kind of burns his arm. But we find out afterwards that it has left a curse on him.
Yeah, he's got a jellyfish sting.
Yeah.
That'll kill him.
Yeah. Says eventually it'll rot his soul. It'll take his soul, then it will kill him. Essentially, the curse, they say that it was a boar underneath all this mass of worms, but it was a curse born of hatred. And the only way that he could lift the curse was by going east to see with eyes unclouded by hate. And that's like the only direction he's given.
Yeah, I think that was the cool thing where I actually really enjoyed it was it's very to the point where it almost felt like a video game in that sense where it's like it's just very straightforward. You have to do this. All right, cool. And then it all unfolds along the way where it's like you kind of get trapped in like side quests and you start to understand the world a little more. But like immediately it's like first 10 minutes fight scene, something bad happens, the main driver of the story is there, and then it just goes.
I like also that it's just like vague too. It's just like go east and see with eyes unclouded by hate, and he just in his travels just like ends up, like you said, just like embroiled in this world that he's been so shut off. They're like an exiled group of people.
Yeah, everyone thinks his people are gone, dead. Yeah. For me, I was really interested because obviously I hadn't seen it before, so I was a little unsure of what to expect. And then when the boar demon disintegrates into bone, they pull out a ball of iron. And in my head, I was started thinking like, okay, well, that's a bullet. So someone has guns. And then like what that obviously is it's a very like straight to the point modernization, industrialization. Is it like east to the west, like Western culture kind of coming into the more Eastern culture and kind of taking over because they talk about like it's born of hatred. And obviously they say you got to go east with eyes unclouded by hate. So it's kind of like the idea of maybe the West is taking over and you have to go back to this more, I don't want to say puritanical, but more like the essence of what the culture is supposed to be. So immediately I was like, all right, there's some, let's see what this movie's got going. Let's see what's going on.
The Muromachi period of Japan is also, they would have placed us somewhere in like the late 1300s, early 1400s era as well. So I also do think that that's kind of quite some time before like a lot of Western culture moved into Japan.
Mm.
Obviously, I feel like the gunpowder was originally developed in China. So
Yeah, I didn't think it was directly like
yeah, that Western, but
yeah, like they didn't show up on ships and like eagles and
yeah.
Bud Light was
Eagle, just flying in on giant eagles. Dude,
or
that'd be badass at that time period.
yeah, there was guys in triangle hats flying in on eagles pouring Bud Light all over these innocent Japanese villagers.
I do think like immediately it's interesting because they say like, oh yeah, leave here, and basically telling him try not to have hatred in his heart, try to go and see the rest of the world without having hate. And the first thing he encounters is just a massacre happening.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of like these scenes of him like walking through nature and everything, but then we come upon a group of like villagers that are just getting attacked by samurai, and this is where we really see what the demon arm means for him, as he just has like super strength now, essentially, not on purpose, and doesn't seem like something he wants to use. He doesn't want to fight, but when he's kind of backed into a corner, he does, and takes off heads with a single arrow fire or rips off arms. So,
Yeah, I just wrote "Suns out, guns out, arrow time" because his arm gets real shredded.
yeah, it just ripples like
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
yeah.
That was when I was like, okay, he's a demon now. Like this is the stakes it's taking over him. So they send him east. He ends up in a village. This is where Billy Bob Thornton gets introduced. Jigo. I think this is when they start talking about the spirit of the forest, and it's a little more. I think he's the one that gives him the direction of what he's supposed to be looking for.
So they're in the town. He's trying to buy rice, and all he has is gold. And the lady's like, "What the hell are you trying? What are you trying to pull? Like, this isn't money." And then that's when Billy Bob's character Jigo shows up. He's like, "You silly woman, this is a lump of pure gold." Like, so then it becomes a big like spectacle, and people start following them out of town. And but as he's sitting there, he basically tells him like, based off of the bowl that he's eating out of, he's like, he's like, I've only ever seen this like one other time from the Amishi people, but they're wiped out. But he's like, don't worry, I'm not gonna say anything. So he kind of like builds trust with them, and then after that, Ashitaka pulls out the bullet and asks if he's seen anything like that. And he goes, no, but I heard if you go here, like there's this town and all that, like where they're making new stuff, and kind of leads him, to the direction of Irontown.
I think it's not shortly after that. He's walking through the forest upon that direction, and he sees two of the people who were in the fight, well, the town, who are in the river, still alive. So he like tries to get them, and then we see the first appearance of the wolves.
Yeah,
one of them is injured. Oh, because it's the
mother.
Yeah, because Lady Eboshi, we get the first introduction to her. She's taking the ox that are carrying like iron or
I think it was rice.
Rice, yeah. And the wolves attack. Some of her people fall. They shoot the one wolf with a bullet. So we're like, you connect the dots. Like, okay, they're the one shooting off, killing these, or at least shooting the animals. And then Ashitaka is pulling the people out of the river. And all I wrote down was Ashitaka is spotted by a vampire. Because
he's sucking the blood out.
Yeah, she's sucking the blood out of the wolf and spitting it.
I don't know if he was just like trying to suction the bullet out itself the whole time she was doing that. I don't know what the purpose of that was, but that is the first time we meet Eboshi and Gonza, and you start to see Eboshi, and immediately, I mean, it doesn't look like things people could survive, but they're like, oh, what about the men that like fell? And she's like, they're dead. We got to get this rice back. They weren't dead. At least two of them weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashitaka grabs them, splints them, decides to try to carry them back to their town. On his way there, we get his first viewing of the spirit of the forest itself, and he finds a grove and he's giving them water. But also, there's definitely something mystical going on in that pond in general. I mean, he found like a valley of gods essentially, because he drinks the water and he's like, all of a sudden these people are lighter and like not as hard to carry.
Yeah, even the guy, he's like, I don't think my arm's broken anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ashitaka also, his companion, faithful companion, is a giant red elk, which is really cool too.
Which I wanted to. This is gonna be a reoccurring theme, I guess, for me. Is I started looking into the symbolism of the animals of the movie, because I was. Some of them, I know the zodiac is traditionally Chinese, but the zodiac was adopted into Japan, and I started thinking about like some of the animals of the zodiac are important characters or like plot points, and then I started just wondering like what is the significance of certain animals to Japanese culture specifically. And one of the interesting things I found about Yakul, he might not be an elk.
No?
So I guess speculation, it's not definitive, but one of the things is it may just be a translation issue where they couldn't translate whatever word, so they went with elk. And also Jigo is only the only person that refers to him as an elk.
Okay.
So it may just be a translation thing. He might not actually be an elk. But one of the other things that I found to be interesting specifically with Yakul's character, like he is an important character.
Yeah, he's a very important character.
Elk are not native to Japan.
No.
So I think that kind of, I don't know if that reinforces the idea that he's not an elk, but there's also another animal that's not native to Japan that makes an appearance. So we can talk about that. But yeah, I like that it wasn't just a horse. I thought that was cool. And he's a cool guy.
Yeah, no, Yakul's awesome. He's very, very loyal companion to Ashitaka. We also did get to see in the forest the Kodamas, which are just little dudes, little speared dudes.
Little maracas.
Yeah, their heads just kind of look like they're trying to crack their neck, and then they just like...
They make a little
chatter.
shake noise. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I like them.
But they're supposed to be a good sign that forest is healthy, and with that becomes a big thing in general, is just like how healthy this forest is, because it's right next to Irontown, and that's the major point of contention in this movie. As Ashitaka does travel through the town or the forest, he does get the two members of Irontown home, which it is this just kind of like island town, just completely walled in. But he brings them home. People meet him at the gate, and a lot of comedy here. This is where a lot of the Irontown's where a lot of the feminism comes in. Also, the entire like working class and almost the people in charge in general are all women, and the men are just kind of there to essentially fight when needed to protect the town.
One of the things that gets brought up a lot with the town is kind of like the ineptitude of the men who live there, because they are just kind of the brawn. I think all of the women they mention are women that Lady Eboshi saved from brothels.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, you kind of get this throughout the rest of the movie, but you start to see, because it's really easy to demonize Iron City.
I can't. I love Iron City. I drink it all the time.
It's really easy to demonize Irontown, but it seems like they are naturally the like antagonists of the story, because it's very easy to tell it's an environmentalist story, and they are the industrial city. Part of the like the nuance of the character of Lady Eboshi in the town itself is the women are women that Lady Eboshi saved from the brothel. The people who are making the weapons are lepers who would have no place in society otherwise. So it's this very interesting mix of outcasts and people who would otherwise not be able to see equally contributing as the society around them if they were to be anywhere else.
He did a good job at making the villain, and I'm going to air quote villain with Lady Eboshi, a very hard character to hate. He even stated that he didn't want this to just be like a cut and dry, black and white, like concept. It's not so much of like industrialism is bad, environmentalism is good. There's clearly some blurred lines there. If we didn't industrialize, could technology and man be ushered into the era that they have been now? Is a big part of it. So he did want people to keep guessing and to actually think about that with this character and with this, like, the concept behind this whole thing.
Yeah, I read an article about that specifically, and there's like scholars who specifically examine this movie, and they were taught, like, one of the quotes that I pulled out were like, they say some disputes are inevitable for technology to progress, and the movie is more about the distaste for how the issues are treated rather than the issues themselves. So it can be thought of more as like, even if we bring up the issue of, you know, the damage that's caused to the environment due to our progress that's inevitable, even bringing that up, the way that that's treated is worse potentially than just the act itself. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
It also does go, if you take a look at the side of like the beasts in the forest fighting back, it even goes to show like they don't agree on what the right thing to do is either. Some of them are just trying to live still in the woods and just fight back the humans as they come in. Others want to just wipe them out. Eventually, we run into the ape tribe, who's now kind of becoming carnivorous and wants to eat humans so they can become strong like them.
I want to talk about the apes because I like the apes. One, they're funny. But I think there's a lot of interesting subtext with the apes, because it's not even that they're becoming more human-like, because they explicitly, the wolves explicitly say, if you eat human flesh, you will become worse than humans. So it's this interesting play on like almost evolution, where the apes are jumping over humans to become something potentially worse by just trying to defend themselves and then assimilate to humans being more present. And I thought that was really interesting. And then apes are also not native to Japan.
Apes,
So
okay. I thought it might have been boars, but I wasn't sure.
no, boars are. So it's one of those things. So one, let's just get this out of the way. Apes are not monkeys.
Yeah, yeah.
Monkeys and apes are primates, but apes are not monkeys,
Monkeys have tail, apes do not.
essentially. But yeah, apes are not native to Japan. So again, it's very interesting to see that play on a non-native species being present in the story and then being a stand-in for something that's potentially worse than the humans in the story itself. And then I just, because symbology is interesting to me, and like I did this for the whale with the bird. But apes typically represent like a primal instinct and connectivity between nature and humanity. So they're kind of the link between the two, which in the story, they're in the movie, it is kind of how it works. Primates are the ancestor of Homo sapien. So they are the link between the two, but then also they are in nature. Apes are typically seen and represented as very ugly creatures because of their ability to mimic humans without, it's kind of like the uncanny valley, where it's like they're similar enough to us that it's creepy, that we associate them with like an ugliness. I thought it was interesting how, like I said, the elk, who knows, maybe it's a translation issue.
Yeah.
But
these were gorillas, like when you see the apes.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and yeah, all the things that kind of go into that. That was, as the animals that I psychoanalyzed come up, I'll just throw those out.
I do like the first time we get the apes too, which we're kind of jumping ahead to talk about that, but they're very akin to like the first image of the demon you see, because they're all shadow and kind of like, I don't want to say an amorphous blob, but like you can't really tell where they begin and end. They have red eyes, and it's just a very like haunting situation, because it is like, so during Ashitaka's first day in Irontown, Eboshi shows him her workshop. He meets all the lepers and everything, but then a battle ensues because the wolf girl comes to try and murder Eboshi. He gets in between it and knocks them both out. Somebody shoots him on his way out trying to carry the wolf girl out, and he leaves, passes out on his elk. And then the wolves were about to just body him.
That was the funniest part of the movie. The one wolf just comes over and grabs his head and starts shaking it. I audibly laughed out loud. Like, that was so funny. And it's obviously serious, but like the animation of that happening is so funny.
And San, the wolf girl, stops him. Then that's whenever the apes happen. But so it's this very just kind of like dark, foreboding moment whenever all that happens and we see the apes, and they are this just kind of like, at that point, kind of evil, like to us, like to me.
It feels like what I thought they were going to be instead of apes were the opposing force to the what are they called? The little clackers.
Oh, the Kadamas.
The Kadamas. I thought they would be like the opposing force to the Kadamas, where it was like these big creepy, like the evil spirit of the forest, and then they were apes.
The one moment that I did want to touch back on, whenever he meets the lepers and everything, whenever he finds out that like they're building better guns, he just asks like, so how much more hatred do you need to spread? And his arm just goes wild at that point too, and he has to stop himself from drawing his sword. It just shows to me like Ashitaka he's the main character, but we're seeing everything through his eyes, essentially, and he's trying to be as peaceful as possible in this whole point. Then when he mentions seeing with eyes unclouded by hate to Eboshi, she just laughs hysterically. Like, she's just like, that's an impossible thing. Like, you're never gonna lift this curse if that's what you're looking for. Just that, like, while she is kind of a representation of evil, but also does these good things, she is also still jaded to the idea of there being peace in general. And I think it's not just because of the forest also, but she's also getting attacked by a samurai lord half the time too, because they're trying to take her iron, trying to take Irontown over, or trying to buy it off of her. When she refuses to sell it, they're attacking her. So she's also just kind of not only stuck in this battle with the forest, but also stuck in a battle with opposing forces outside of the forest. So I think she, like, to me, she's more of a jaded character than she is kind of like a unreasonable evil character, where she's just like, no, I can't stop doing the things I'm doing or I'm going to get run over.
Yeah, it's kind of like the idea of like the snowball effect, where it's like you can't go back. All you can really do is go forward, but you know, what is the end result of the action you're taking? Like, you can't revert back to a more natural lifestyle, because then you're just setting yourself up to be attacked by a warlord. But if you continue to do this, you're going to have to fight and, you know, take action against this person who's taking action upon you.
After the ape tribe scenario scene, whatever, that the ape tribe scene, San does take him back to the grove of the Spirit of the Forest, where she takes him there to essentially heal him. She leaves him on the island. It's a sacred island. She even takes Yakul's bridle, like his reins, off of him, and tells him to go. She says, "You're free. Like, you don't have to follow him anymore. He's not your master." And Yakul just also does not step foot on the island, and she points out to him that she's like, "Oh, you're a very intelligent creature. You know, you wouldn't dare step foot here." Mm-hmm. It kind of cuts, and Ashitaka wakes, and he's his bullet wound is healed. His cut on his face is healed. Everything except for the curse itself, which San shows up, tries to get him to eat, but then also points out that Yakul is a very loyal creature to him because he hasn't left his side the entire time.
Yeah, this is where I got a little confused because I was like, she tries to get him to eat, and it's like jerky, and he just can't. I guess like he doesn't have his strength yet.
Yeah.
So she starts eating, and then she leans down, and I wrote, Ashitaka's wound is gone. Next bullet point. She kisses him. Bullet point, end it. Oh, wait, baby bird. Because she's just baby birding him jerky.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's kind of gross.
It's really gross.
Yeah.
But as he becomes healed, a wolf is there waiting for him. Kind of leads him to where they stay, essentially. And this is kind of where... Oh, I don't. My bad. Sorry. While he's still injured and healing, the boar tribe shows up. And this is where things kind of start to turn, because the boars are just downright pissed. They don't like that there's two humans there to begin with. Maro, the wolf goddess, is there as well. Explains that one's her daughter, the other one was saved by the spirit of the forest themselves. So, but this is where we meet Akoto, who is a big old wise blind boar. The boars are mad because the spirit of the forest would not heal and cure who we learn is Nago, which was the demon in the beginning. He was a boar that was shot, became a demon, and attacked Ashitaka's village. But they're essentially they're a boar tribe from a completely different forest. It's just here. It's like, all right, you guys aren't doing this. You guys aren't fighting the humans off, so we're here to do it. And it just kind of keeps leading to more violence, begetting more violence. The boars bring a whole army. Irontown kind of comes out, not necessarily because of that, but more because of Jigo and his group, who end up hiring Lady Eboshi to kill the spirit of the forest. But we end up getting a large ensuing battle over the boars trying to defend the spirit of the forest and kind of just fight back the humans.
I think one of the things that's really interesting about the boars is the idea of how like fate plays a part in the story as a whole. Obviously, one of the first things that happens is Ashitaka is told this is what's going to happen. Like, this is your fate, essentially. You can't, there's nothing you can do to stop it except for we come to learn possibly hanging out with the spirit of the forest and, you know, whatever that ends up being. But one of the things that the boar brings up is they're like upset. Like, you didn't beg for the spirit to heal Nago, and you're gonna ask it to beg, or you're gonna beg it to heal this human, and they're pretty upset about that. And Maro, they're like, you're gonna beg the spirit of the forest to heal you, aren't you? And she's like, no, I understand. I have this bullet in me. I am gonna die. And I think it's interesting to that play where the boar most likely couldn't accept the fate, and that's what garnered the hatred, or really facilitated the hatred that turned him into a demon. Maro is accepting of the fate that she will die, so, you know, to some degree she doesn't have to worry about that hate becoming something worse and worse. And then because of the emotive nature that the boars have towards the situation generally, the wolf tribe talks about, like, the boars are idiots, and they have so much pride that they're willing to kill off their entire tribe just to
fight to the last fight. Yeah,
essentially just to have a pressure valve on their own emotions, their own animosities towards the humans. And I thought that was it was really interesting to how they frame how the boars react to the situation, and how it kind of plays into the aspects of fate, and then how that determines like how much hatred really grows inside of these characters.
They're also very reactive. Like, it's not a very well thought out thing. They're just like, we're here now. We're here to take the forest because nobody else is able to defend it. After Ashitaka's healed, he has a discussion with Maro. At this point, too, like, Akodo, after Ashitaka says what happens, like, none of the boars believe him. And then Akodo just, like, comes and gives him a big old sniff and just goes, nah, he's telling the truth. And he says, like, thank you for essentially putting him to at peace, but if I see you again, you will die. He goes and stays with the wolf tribe. He comes out and has a conversation with Maro and basically pleads for San's life and for her to free her. And she's just like, you don't have any idea what happened. Like, the people were cutting down our forest. I appeared to stop them, didn't even do anything, and they just threw their daughter at my feet and ran away. And she said, I took her in as my own. She is my daughter. And basically says, like, she's free to go if she wants. Mm-hmm. But that's up to her, not up to Maro. Doesn't Maro also, I don't think she threatens his life, like, says, but tells him to leave at the sun up to go back to Irontown.
That sounds, yeah.
Yeah.
I like the finer details I'm a little fuzzy on. But.
Yeah. So Ashitaka finds his way back to Irontown, only to find that it's under siege by samurai. Ashitaka, if I'm remembering correctly, he went back basically to plead with Eboshi and try to talk her out of going into the forest and destroying the forest. But comes to find that she'd been hired to go kill the spirit of the forest. So then he gathers his things and starts heading back to essentially to try to stop the fight between the boars, the humans, the wolves. But Yakul on the way gets shot by an arrow in the leg. So it's nothing really fatal, but he ends up fighting off the samurai, and just, like, to me, like, one of the most badass moments in the entire film. I just love that scene where they shoot the arrow at him and he just, like, catches it, like, he has a sword in his mouth and he just catches the arrow and then just, like, turns it back around and just shoots. Like, you can only credit it to probably being part demon at that point, but it's just, like, such a cool moment, and I just love that whole scene of just him just lopping off heads with arrows, and then he hits the third one. You just see the last samurai just, like, turn around and just, like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
Yeah, all the battle scenes are really, really well done. When I put the movie on, one of the descriptors, where it's like, you know, if it's a comedy, it'll say, like, comedy, hilarious, gut, whatever. It was just epic battles. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. But then I was like, oh, okay. These are, like, tastefully done. And they're cool.
I also thought it was really cool, too, whenever, like, in that fight, he rolls at one point, they shot an arrow at him, and you just see the arrow, like, pin his hat, and he just, like, keeps rolling, and just, like, I was like, oh, that was a close one.
So you start to, more and more about Jigo, you start to see more and more of his character. At one point, they call him the demon monk, and it's just in passing. They just kind of mention it, and it's like, if you pick up on it, you're like, okay, what's going on with him? And in this fight specifically, you start to realize how horrible he really is. He starts to use his own men as bait against the boars, where he sends the front men up with grenades, and where there's landmines under their feet, and he sends them up with grenades. So he's just using he's killing his own men in order to take out the first
wave of boars.
Yeah. And even some of his men who survive are talking about, like,
they're the men of Irontown. So that was the thing, is those weren't even his men. Like, all of his people were up on top of the hill kicking grenades down on top of them while they were trying to fight off the boars, and there were mines underneath them. To me, Jigo is very much in this movie the embodiment of greed. The whole thing the whole reason he's trying to hire Eboshi to kill the spirit of the forest is because legend has it that the head of the spirit of the forest can grant immortality, and he's trying to get it for the Emperor to make the Emperor immortal, because the Emperor will pay him millions and millions to get it for him. Line in the movie says, towards the end, it just says, people literally spend their whole life trying to get everything they want. I might actually get it. It's such a weird, like, line, but to me, it's like, this is a man that actually sees it, like, what he wants. But yeah, he literally has what he needed in his hands at that point, and he's just like, it's basically him pleading, just like, let me have this. But yeah, Jigo is not a good guy. He's very much like, out of everybody, probably the embodiment of evil in this movie. He's hired tons of different hunters. There's all these hunters that are trying to help him track this forest spirit down. All of these monks that work for him too, that are also not good people. When Ashitaka does get explained to by the men of Irontown about how Jigo basically just wiped them out also, it's Jigo's men that are just like, what are you guys doing? Why aren't you digging graves? Like, they're burying their own people. We see that there's a wolf that isn't dead there on the the burial site where they're burying all these boars. And Ashitaka tries to save it, and then immediately the two guards start shooting poison darts at him. And then the guys of Irontown are just like, oh no, we're not having that. This is a good dude. We're not letting you do this to him. Kind of fast forward, he does find, the wolf helps him to find Eboshi and try to get to the main line to also find San, because San pleaded with Morrow that Akoto was just going to go get himself and all them killed, so she had to go help him. He's blind boar in a forest that's not familiar to him, and she wanted to be his eyes. The boars are almost entirely wiped out. We see Ashitaka does catch up to Eboshi, stops just to warn her and says, like, listen, Irontown's under attack. It's literally just they've breached the outer wall. They're at the inner wall. The lepers and women are on their last fight. Like, if you don't leave now, you're going to lose your city. You're going to lose your town. They don't know if it's true or not, so they just keep pushing forward to get the forest spirit's head. Ashitaka does catch up. We find that San and Akoto are like the only two left. Akoto's mortally wounded and trying to get to the grove to ask the spirit of the forest to revive his warriors to continue the fight. And then he thinks that it has happened already because all of Jigo's hunters have skinned his boar warriors and are following them.
They cover themselves in
Boar blood.
Boar blood to throw off the scent, so
Yeah.
he can't smell that they're human.
As he starts not believing San as she's telling him what's going on, we start to see him turn into a demon, because he's like, my warriors, let's go, let's fight. And the hatred is so instilled in him still that he starts to turn. San tries to stop him. Somebody hits her with a rock and a sling, knocks her out, and she falls onto Akoto and gets swallowed by worms also. As we get to the Spirit of the Forest Grove, Maru's there waiting. Ashitaka catches up. They start threatening him, and he's basically just like, if you kill me here, like, you have no hope. The Spirit of the Forest isn't going to come here. Like, if there's battle here, nothing's going to happen. So they kind of just have to let everything kind of happen where they try to save San, which does happen. Maru kind of fights Akoto a little bit, pulls San off of him, then gives her to Ashitaka. The Spirit of the Forest does show up and just takes life away from both, which is like really sad moment. Just like the spirit shows up, all the worms dissolve off of Akoto as he looks at him, and then the spirit's basically just like, you're dead.
Which we haven't really talked about the spirit of the forest, like what it is. It's like a weird deer human hybrid. It has like deer body, human face.
Deer antlers.
Yeah, that's one of the things from a design perspective. The deer god in certain in certain shots looks like Xerneas from Pokemon X.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on a sec. So I did some Google, and there was one Reddit post that was like, do you guys see the similarities here? And apparently it's unlikely it's directly influenced, but still it's coincidental. But one of the things about the deer specifically is because the spirit of the forest is a deer. So I was like, okay, what's the significance of deer in Japan? So there's one of those deer parks. It's Nora Park, where they have deer, and like I think that's where the bowing deer are. I could be wrong, but historically they're considered divine messengers, and the thunder god rode on a white horse into Nara. That's why the Nara Park has deer. But then apparently after World War II, Japan was like, forget all that junk, and they took away deer's divine
symbology,
I guess. I don't know.
Weird.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting that they specifically chose a deer because of the historical, especially because, like you said, it's kind of a period piece. So deer probably at that point had that divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one moment, and it's like shortly after that, Eboshi and Jiga show up, and the spirit of the forest is walking right at Ashitaka, and the other thing about the spirit of the forest too, it's during the day it is the spirit of the forest. At night it transforms into this giant blob walking creature.
It's a Kingdom Hearts monster.
Essentially. But it's called the Nightwalker. And this is shortly, it had just become morning, and the spirit of the forest is walking right at Ashitaka, and Eboshi shows up and shoots it straight through the neck. In that moment, its face turns into like a deer face, and then it like regains composure and turns back into a human face. It's just such a like chillingly cool moment. After it gets shot, it's also, again, it can just give life. It looks right at Eboshi's gun, and just vegetation starts growing off of it.
Yeah, like flowers and grass start sprouting out of it.
Off of all the wood on it. Ashitaka tries to do his best to stop it also. Eboshi shoots another shot, and the head of the spirit flies off. And then we start seeing this just translucent blob launches out, but it is it's very, very deadly. Anything it touches just dies. And this is where we kind of really see like the final part of the movie, where it's just all these people are scrambling they have this head and they're trying to get it to safety. I was wrong. It was just becoming night, because it was just about to turn into the Nightwalker when she shoots its head off. The Nightwalker ends up walking around headless trying to find its head. And again, everything it's touching is just decaying immediately. Maro gets a little bit of her revenge, and there's a line Eboshi says way earlier in the movie that says, if you cut off a wolf's head, it still has the power to bite. And Maro, for some reason, even though it's dead, her head, I think
she's decapitated.
It's decapitated, yeah. And it just flies through all the blob and just bites Eboshi's arm right off. Just like, oh, there's some merit to that saying, she said.
I want to highlight a really cool line that gets said. I think it's Jigo. I think so. Maybe it's Eboshi. But they're going to kill the spirit of the forest, and one of them just goes, when you're going to kill a god, get someone else to do your dirty work.
Jigo says that.
Yeah.
Because one of the guys is like, why? I don't even know why we needed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I just thought it was a really cool line.
There's a lot of really cool quotes in this movie in general. I like a lot of the quotes in it. Eboshi says something right before she shoots the spear of the forest head off too. There's like a quote that's memorable to me, and I can't. It's memorable to me, but I can't. Yeah, she says yippee-ki-yay. The whole rest of the movie is Ashitaka and San chasing down Jiga and his minion while they're running around the head of the spear of the forest. And I know the way I said that makes it sound like it's more comical to say running around with it, but
yeah, do they have it in like a like a
a
weird
metal case.
Yeah, and they're carrying it like you would see like pharaohs get carried, where
Yeah.
it's just two big sticks with like a canvas in between. They're just carrying it around
The
like that.
the only time it does actually become comical to me is whenever it starts rolling down the hill and Jigo is like, I got it, and he grabs it and he just starts like rolling uncontrollably with it too.
Yeah.
But it is at that point when they get into a fight, because Son at one point just says, why are we even talking to him? Let's just kill him and get this over with. And Jigo kind of shows that he isn't that easy to kill, as it turns into an actual fight. But that's whenever they're sitting there and Jigo says that, he's like, everybody trying their whole life to get everything they want. He's like, I might actually get it if we just let the sun come up and this thing will disappear. But Ashitaka's just kind of floored. He's like, you would do that? Just completely kill the forest and everything that it stands for? They eventually cede to Ashitaka and San and let them reopen the case and give the head of the Spear of the Forest back, which is legitimately just, again, the Nightwalker just like bends over and falls on top of them to reattach its head.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both holding it up. As she's touching it, the curse is spreading to her as well. But afterwards, you see the Spear of the Forest fall. It falls on Irontown. It falls on the mountainside. When dawn breaks, the mountainside is lush forest again, like grass, not obviously trees didn't just like completely sprout up. Irontown has vegetation growing all over the wood there. All the people of Irontown are kind of on rafts in the middle of the lake. And Ashitaka and San wake up to find that their curse has been lifted. Ashitaka still has like a scar, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's like a constant reminder, I think. But it does end up being kind of a happy ending.
Yeah. Right before like it kind of resolves, there's a lot of like San really starts to, she's just outright talking about how much she hates humans and how much she wants to be in nature. And it's really interesting to kind of view it as her having this disbelief that she could be, which if we frame it in terms of like environmentalism and especially how I would imagine the creator feels, she has this resentment towards humanity because she doesn't believe that she can be like, her and humans are the same species, whatever. They're not cut of the same cloth because of all the horrible things that they're doing. And part of, the resolve is not necessarily her coming to terms with the fact that she is human, but at least she kind of is just like, I hate humans, I hate humans, I hate humans. And then she at least learns to kind of, I guess, live in like that in that balanced state with them.
I think Ashitaka does like remind her that she is also, it's definitely not the first time she's been told she's human, but I think he's actually somebody that she respect. Like everybody else who called her human, she didn't really respect, and she respects Ashitaka. She feels for him, and then whenever he says it, she like is taken aback a little bit and kind of like shocked. But that was like the only time that anybody calling her human affected her that way. The apes call her human, and she doesn't even get a chance to react to it because the wolves chase them off earlier in the film. But she can't see herself as being human because she would never do the things that she sees the humans do.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I can't speak on it because I haven't seen any of the other movies, but I was left a little unsatisfied by the ending.
Yeah.
It felt, I don't know, maybe it's my Western, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. I just think for me, it didn't feel like there was consequence. Jigo is fine.
Yeah.
Hiboshi is fine.
She's missing an arm.
She's alive.
She's alive. Yeah.
Iron. It's called Iron City, unironically. Irontown is doing fine, which is whatever because, the underlying idea of that being like a colony of outcasts doing well is okay with me, but it just felt weird. Like even the two shades of antagonist get out relatively unscathed, and everything is kind of restored, which is what I expected. But yeah, I don't know. It just kind of felt unsatisfying.
I think Eboshi surviving to me, like, I like that and appreciate that because she seems to have a different outlook after everything. Like she talks about she says something about being wrong and like she says it to Gonza, like having to rebuild and maybe doing it differently. She has a different outlook, and she was also manipulated to do that. I think she was like she wasn't a great person. Well, and that's the other thing too. She's not a bad person. She's doing what they needed to do for survival and to keep her village fed, her lepers getting taken care of, and to keep them fed and safe. So like Jigo didn't really see any consequences, like you said, and that doesn't always sit well with me. But I am happy that Eboshi did survive through it.
Yeah, I guess for her, I could see it as being the idea of accepting the balance that needs to occur between you and nature. Like it can't just be like the idea of cancer is that it grows just because it can grow. For her, and I keep almost saying Iron City. For her in Iron Town is you can't just grow for the sake of growth. You have to work. There has to be a balance between the natural and the industrial, or the natural and the more human aspects of life. But yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the ending wasn't offensive to me. I all of this build up, and I was just like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think if Ashitaka and San were the ones that, like, let's say they killed Jigo, that I feel like that in turn also would have been at the end of the movie, everything that they were trying to avoid doing would have happened, at the same time. Again, a big part of the hatred and violence begets violence. To me, that's like one of the other reasons why he had ended up surviving that. One of the things I said, like, I always tell people these are probably more adult than what like Disney movies are for the most part, but this came out in 97. I think his first one came out in like 87 or 88. But I always say, like, I always feel like the female main characters in Studio Ghibli films or Ghibli films, I always think are like the more appropriate role models in Disney princesses, because they're usually princesses also. So I always be like, show your kids Ghibli films.
Speaking of, just because you said it, I don't think we made not one mention of it until right now. San is Princess Mononoke.
Yeah. Yeah, she is the title character,
yeah,
essentially.
We never mentioned that.
Yeah. I think they mention her as that once in the film also. Like, they don't.
Yeah, there's reference to it. Like, it's
Yeah.
outright said. I mean, it's also safe to assume.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't mentioned that until right now.
Yeah. I always say I have a gripe with the Disney princesses, even though these films are distributed by Disney in America, so technically they are. I don't think they aren't anymore. Disney used to have distribution rights. I think Warner Brothers does now, which is why they're on Max. But they always have like strong female princess characters where my joke is always just like, yeah, it's not like Belle from Beauty and the Beast where they just teach girls it's all right to have Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, become a wolf vampire.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I love this film. I love a lot of his films. I recommend them. What I didn't ask this whole time. I was waiting till the end. I figured you'd say it when you wanted to, but how'd you like it?
What did our good friend Garlic Hero tell you?
So the first time whenever we walked in, he asked if you told me you liked it, and then later I was like, is it just for a bit that he didn't want to tell me he liked it, or I just want to find out on the cast? And he was like, he's like, I don't think he'll ever like anything if he didn't like this.
Yeah, Garlic Hero, the person responsible for the shred artwork, after I told him we were watching Princess Mononoke, and he was like, "Oh, I love that one. You're in for a treat." And right after it finished, I asked him. I was like, "What do you think the best Studio Ghibli film is?" And he was like, "Probably Princess Mononoke." And then I was asking him because that kind of began him asking like, "So what did you think? What did you?" And I liked it. I actually really liked it more than I expected to, and I'm gonna watch more Studio Ghibli films now. Spirited Away will probably be the next one I go for because I feel like it makes the most sense. But yeah, I really liked it. I really like the animation. I really like the story. I really like the. It sounds really lame, but I like the whimsical aspects of it. It was really like I understand why people like up until this point. Like I know obviously I'm just gonna call him Garlic now. Garlic, even our good friend Dead Drum, who made our intro, are all big Ghibli heads, and I never understood. And like I see all of My Neighbor Totoro and all of the artwork and animation, and people love just going absolutely crazy. I never understood why people were so obsessed with it, and I am not as obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But I understand why people are drawn to it because it's very light, it's very whimsical while also tackling these very like heavy subjects, and like the grotesque and horrifying is mixed very well with like these very sprawling landscapes that are beautifully crafted and these weird little interesting creatures that kind of make you laugh. And yeah, I actually really liked it.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, wait, it was funny because right before you walked into that conversation that him and I were having about it, I was like, yeah, I liked it. And then I don't know if you caught this, but the first thing he said is like, yeah, he liked it. And then I went, no, don't say anything. And that's when he was like, actually, I guess I shouldn't tell.
And that's what I was like. I wasn't sure if it was like a combined bit, like, because I thought he said, did you tell him you liked it? And then you're like, and I was like, ah. So I was like, I'll wait.
Yeah, but no, I did like it.
I also thought that's part of the bit for the going to pick up Doki Doki Literature Club. Like, I thought it was like, I thought you were trying to like put on that you're just like this big anime head now, and that's why I was just like, all right, dude. Like, cool.
Yeah, for context, right before coming to record, I had to go pick up Doki Doki Literature Club on Switch from someone on Facebook Marketplace from my girlfriend, and I knew it was one of those things. If I kept just saying I have to go pick up Doki Doki Literature Club, that you wouldn't believe me. And then when I showed up, I showed you that I had Doki Doki.
I thought it was a bit. I thought you were just like, I kind of thought that you maybe didn't like it, but we're trying to put on that like you turned me in this big anime fan.
No, I did like it, and that's one of those I do genuinely, because I think one of the things that it's very comforting. It was a very comforting movie to watch, and like even I was talking to my girlfriend about it, who really likes the movie, and she kind of preempted me. I was like, yeah, that's a pretty devastating movie. And I was telling her, like, I don't know. I thought it was actually, like, I came away from it. It was, like, kind of cute. Like, it was kind of, like, heartwarming and cute. Mm-hmm. And I know that's kind of the antithesis of Shred, but, like, it still had those elements. And, like, also, it's a nice like, palate cleanser.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll definitely be watching more Ghibli.
All right.
But
on that note,
it's been real. It's been fun.
Season 7 of the summer.